Hi there, everybody. My name's Fred. Welcome to my channel, Amazing Indiana. Good to have you with us today. And if you like videos about travel, please subscribe to my channel, and also please like this video. It really does help a whole lot. I'm in Berne, Indiana today. Berne is kind of south of Fort Wayne, about 45 minutes. It was settled by Mennonite people from Ohio who were originally from Switzerland. So there's a real Swiss vibe going on here in Berne. There's all kinds of shops in town. Most of them are actually geared for the local people, so you're not going to find a whole lot of like Swiss chocolate or Swiss cheese, but they're still worth checking out. Behind me is the famous Berne clock tower. Unfortunately, it does not seem to be doing too much today as far as the glockenspiel is concerned. I'll try to come back at some other point and get that up on YouTube for you guys. The highlight of any visit here to Berne is to go to the Swiss Village, and that's where we're headed next. Okay, so here we are in the Swiss Heritage Village and Museum in lovely Berne, Indiana. They've got a great little museum here that highlights the town of Berne and all of its people. And I'm just going to kind of walk around here just to kind of give you guys a sense of what you can see at the museum. It's got a lot about the faith of the people in this area. There's a lot of Amish and Mennonite people in this part of Indiana. And if you're driving in Berne, you need to be aware of that and give all of those nice people a lot of leeway when you see them in their buggies and in their horse-drawn carts. So please be careful with that if you're driving in this area, because unfortunately, every year here in Indiana, there are a certain amount of accidents that take place. But this is a lovely museum. Also shows some of the industry that has gone on in town here. For example, if I just turn this way, you'll see stuff about Berne Furniture Company and Homer Manufacturing, Swiss City Furniture, and also Smith Brothers of Berne. It's a really nicely done little museum, and I would commend it to you. I'm going to be going outside here in just a bit to take a tour of the village itself, and I'm sure that'll be interesting too. So, just a couple more shots here inside the museum, and then we will be going outside to see more of this interesting little town and this interesting museum and village. Okay, everybody, here we are in the Swiss Village, and there's another Fred here. I'm Fred and he's Fred, so we can't forget our names today, can we?
No, we cannot.
We can't. And Fred, can you just tell me a little bit about how the village came to be and how long it's been here?
Well, the village opened in 1985, mainly because the Luganville house needed to be moved or torn down. And some people got together and purchased this land. I don't know how many acres, but probably 3 or 4 acres.
Right.
And they then moved the house here, and that was the start of it. So
cool. Okay, well, let's just go take a walk and you can show me around.
Okay.
The first stop on our tour of the Swiss Village is the restored one-room schoolhouse. Here, Fred is going to give us a description of what we're seeing.
School, it was out in, I believe, northwest of Berne. It's called the Yeager School because the state of Indiana required that each of the schools be on an acre of property. This one was not, so they bought land from the Yeagers.
Ah, I see. Okay.
In the county, there are There were a schoolhouse every 2 miles,
My goodness.
so that the people didn't have to walk too far.
And was this one moved to the site here?
This was moved to the site in one piece.
Wow, my goodness. That must have been quite a that was quite a process, I'm sure.
Right. The walls are 3 bricks thick. I don't remember how many tons, but it was moved in one piece, and I believe the owner, the guy who moved it, was kind of arrogant, and he put a glass of water in the window, and he said that's not going to spill, and it did not. As you can tell, on the left were the little kids, on the right are the bigger kids. If you were a woman teacher, you had to live with one of the families, and you had to be single. They would move from house to house throughout the area. So if it was cold in the morning, she would have to build a fire in the furnace here, and then when the class was ready, they would ring the bell that we have here. Once to tell the kids to come in, and then twice to line up, boys on one side, girls on the other.
Okay, and this house, Fred, was moved to the property here?
This was moved to the property from the south side of Berne. It was moved again in one piece, and has been a major attraction. So
Major attraction here at the village.
Yes.
And looks like we've got all good native Indiana flowers here in the garden, and gosh, sunflowers over across the side of the garden there too.
The garden was made by people that's actually quartered, so that they can rotate their crops like they do the soybeans and the corn today. If you look at the base of the fence, you'll find a bunt board to try to keep out the rabbits and other vermins. Now, Mr. Luganville happened to know Johnny Appleseed.
Oh my!
And so when he came through, he would visit, and of course you know that Johnny Appleseed is buried up in Fort Wayne.
Yes, we think 2 different spots. There's 2 places that claim to have Johnny. Oh, this is gorgeous in here.
This is not a typical store, but we illustrate this, starting the fire in this area, heating the water for food and for the Friday night bath or Saturday night bath. So, and a lot of the pieces of property here you've probably seen.
Yeah. A lot of and mason jars are probably the same kind of mason jars that we have today, aren't they?
Yes, absolutely. And I always like to show this piece of equipment because it represents the sandwich of Indiana, which is the pork tenderloin. So you pound that out very thin
until you get and it gets tender that way, doesn't it? Oh wow!
So if you notice on the wall here, this is how they insulated their.
Oh yes.
So that's made up of straw, mud, dung. And so it's put inside, and it's much nicer than what I lived in.
Oh my goodness! Wow, this is, and so there's also, I see here in this bedroom we've got another nice stove.
And in the corner in the cupboard is the nice plates and cups that were of the time. Very nice. If you have some of that stuff, it's very hard to. The grandkids and the kids no longer want that.
Sure.
So, okay.
And a little pipe organ too, I see.
Yes. I don't think that was in the house originally, but it's a place to store it.
Right. Cool.
We have the chamber pot. It goes with the family. The kids live upstairs.
Okay.
If there's a cradle over here, which for the little ones, but when they get to the age they can climb the steps, I'm sure they're upstairs. Going over to the cheese house here.
Uh-huh.
There used to be a couple places here in Berne that made cheese. The milk that was needed was brought to the place, and a guy by the name of Jake came from Switzerland, and he was the cheese maker here. So let me open the door.
Oh, cool.
Get more light in.
Yeah.
This is where he lived.
Rather simple accommodations. I take it he was not married.
He was not married.
Uh-huh.
So he actually got here by devious means. He wanted to get here quickly, so he stole the money from his uncle and killed him.
Oh my goodness!
Came
So Berne had an outlawed cheesemaker.
Yes, which eventually was acquitted, so to speak.
Uh-huh.
This is where they make the cheese.
Ah.
They fill this up with milk, and behind it is a place where they built a fire.
Ah. Okay.
Now, Jake had 10 fingers,
Yes.
but he didn't have a thermometer, so the fingers were used.
Oh my goodness.
So test the milk, and when it got to a certain temperature, they took a piece of stomach from dried pieces from a stomach of a cow,
Yeah.
and they would throw that in there, and that would start the curdling process.
Oh my.
And once it had curdled, they would take the cup and they would dip it out and put the curds and the whey in
Uh-huh.
in this container. The 5-gallon container would then be given to the animals. Once they had the curds, they would bring it over here and they would put it into a form like this. And you can see the forms around the building
Yes.
for the various types of
Cheese.
that they make.
Go ahead. Show us how you do this, Fred.
Now we're pressing the cheese, taking out the whey that's still in the process.
Right.
And once it's solid, then we will take the weight off. And I'm always amazed at the ingenuity of them as far as the way they've hooked up the method of.
Yeah, it's very, very simple, isn't it?
Yes, it
Just
is.
on a, yeah, incredible.
Pull it again.
Yeah, go right ahead. And that pulls that up, and then you push the board, you put the board in there, and that squeezes it. That's amazing, and that's a pretty substantial piece of wood.
Yes, it is.
Do you have any idea how much that weighs? I mean, it must be pretty, it's heavy.
I'm not just sure it's heavy.
Yeah, it's probably like a grand piano. It wouldn't, and then you said that these are also, we have various cheese molds here all over for the various kind of cheeses, and I see that there's holes in the side of this, and then what would they make? Everybody probably asks this, but is that what they would make Swiss cheese out of it, so that they get the holes, or how does that happen?
Well, they make Swiss cheese, and they've made a couple other varieties.
Right.
But once they were done
Yeah.
with the molds, they would take and store the cheese in this room next door.
Uh-huh.
And once they had sufficient number of molds of cheese, they would put it in a wagon and either take it to the train station here in town or actually take it up to Fort Wayne. This is the Newsome barn.
Uh-huh.
Edward Newsome donated this. This was moved in one piece.
Wow.
Approximately a mile. If you look directly back to the northwest, it was moved across the road and into this spot.
So that's Highway 27 over that way, and that's where
Across the street.
Uh-huh.
Where it was originally. It's actually called a bank barn.
Uh-huh.
And those seem to be popular in this area, in that you store the wheat and straw up in the top, the hay, and then down below are the animals,
Mm-hmm.
so they can drop the food down.
And so this whole thing, Fred, was moved in one piece.
In one piece.
Wow, that's amazing. That must have been quite a sight to see. And how long ago was that again?
I'm not quite sure, but it was probably the third or fourth piece that moved here.
That was brought over to the village. Amazing. About the barn, and we're inside the barn right now.
Okay, the typical barn had a rail across the top, which they would use to move the bales of hay up in the corner, far corner there.
Yeah.
You see the hook that they would use. They would come down and get the hay, put it up and stack it up in the corners and around.
Wow.
And so we use this for weddings, for graduation parties. We had a what is it called, a haystack dinner here just recently.
Oh,
and
cool.
then in September we'll have an auction.
So I'm sure a pretty popular place during part of the year, during like May, June, and that kind of thing.
That's correct. So it's really in great shape. There are no nails.
Oh, fascinating. So this is all pegged wood. That is great.
It's my belief that little square right there is where they would drop the hay or down to the animals below.
Right.
So.
Well, this is fascinating, and they have a little woodworking shop up here too. It looks like where they.
Correct. One is electrical power, and the other one at one time was foot power, I believe.
Well, again, this is a wonderful place to check out to see how people used to how people used to live in the past. We're going into the woods now, Fred.
Yes, we're going in to see the cabin that's located there. We covered up the distances between the pieces of wood to make it permanentized, but they used a mixture of mud and straw, etc. to fill in. And then their air conditioning was, in the summertime, was to take that out so they could get a breeze.
Oh, so they could get the breeze coming through the logs. Well, this is just absolutely gorgeous back here, everybody. I want to just kind of pan around a little bit. We are in, just trees all around. Absolutely beautiful back here with a lot of little bird friends singing up there in the trees.
And this is the reason that the Mennonites moved here. They moved from Ohio here because the land was cheap,
right?
A quarter an acre.
Yeah.
And it was very similar to the woods that they had back there, so they could build their homes. They could do almost anything that they had done back in Ohio. The unique thing to me is that the bed is a rope bed. So I'll come over and show you that. In fact, the base is all ropes. And then they have their quilts that are on top. And so it's a nice thing. And then we do have the weaving devices here, the two of them. Usually during Swiss days, they will have somebody that will act in front of the cheese house will actually demonstrate how they used to weave. They made the thread.
An important part of the Swiss village is the Mennonite meeting house. And this, as everything, was moved out here, right?
Right, correct. And originally, where they found it, it was actually a shed, which was being used to store tractors and grain.
Really?
And so they came in and restored it to its proper shape. The back wall that we're walking into was the wall that they replaced. So, got the cloakroom on your left. This is where the kids that were crying would come.
The cry room, yeah,
yes,
sure.
So, this is one of two churches that were here in Berne. The Mennonite church downtown sat on benches, whereas this church sat on pews. Services were not every week. And like we're used to having church start at 9 o'clock in the morning, the minister here would not start the service until there was a sufficient number of patrons. Some of them had to walk 2 to 3 miles, especially in the wintertime because the buggies couldn't go through the mud.
Sure.
So once he started, he would have the passage of the day, and then he would go back to the beginning of Genesis and go entirely through the book to the end of Revelation.
Oh my gosh.
So a service could be 3 to 4 hours long.
The Swiss Village is filled with many interesting buildings which give you a glimpse into the past, and a particularly interesting building, at least I thought so, was to visit the doctor's office.
Dr. Sprunger.
Uh-huh.
He was extremely popular. He became a doctor because he's lost his first wife at childbirth and remarried and had something like 12 or 13 children.
Oh my goodness.
He was so popular that at his funeral there were approximately 2,000 people.
Goodness gracious.
And there's a picture in there of the people outside the Mennonite church downtown with the buggies and everything.
Wow. Oh wow, those are his.
Yeah. And of course we had we've had the polio, and now we've had the pandemic of COVID.
Right.
Now, one of the major medicines that they used at that time was sulfur. And he's got a lot of stuff that's down here that they mixed. And he worked not only on patients, people, but he also worked on animals.
Right. So he did he did both people and pets. They're not pets, farm animals, I'm sure.
Right.
Oh my goodness. And is this just kind of a little waiting area here?
Well, I would say this is...
That was the waiting area back there.
We brought them in here to the examining room. And then once they were finished, then instead of going back to the examining room or the waiting room, he would go out the second door.
I see.
So.
Fascinating. The Swiss Village and Heritage Center is a very interesting place to visit. You'll learn a lot about the early settlers of Berne, Indiana. The village is well maintained, pretty easy to get to, and it is only about 45 minutes south of Fort Wayne. I'll provide a link in the description of this video so that you can learn more. And I'd like to thank Fred and the other people who work at the village for making my visit so informative and enjoyable. So this is the Settlers Monument here in Berne. This is dedicated to all of those first settlers who came and established Berne, Indiana in 1852. And over there you can see the famous Berne clock tower. And wait for the big trucks to go by. Anyhow, that tower is supposed to put on quite a show several times a day, and it failed to do so this afternoon, so I don't know what's up with that. This is a lovely little memorial park here in Berne, and I'll just kind of walk around and talk a little bit about what you're seeing. Lovely, lovely flowers out here, and again, of course, the clock tower. There is a farmer's market here in Berne every Saturday. So if you come down US 27, which is that road over there, you might find the going a little tough because of the farmer's market. I've driven down this way on Saturdays and always forgotten to kind of take a detour around Berne, and ended up regretting that. The Amish influence and the Mennonite influence is really great here in Berne. There were many Mennonite people who migrated from Ohio. They were in Mennonite communities over in Ohio, and they came over to this part of Indiana and settled back in the 1850s. Many of them were of Swiss descent, so that's why there's this emphasis on Switzerland here in Berne, and indeed Berne is named for Berne, the city of Berne in Switzerland as well. So just going to walk down this way a little bit. This is going down towards the downtown area, and it's kind of dark and gloomy right now. I just talked to a man in the gas station when I was buying a sandwich, and he said that there had been big storms just north of Berne up towards Decatur, Indiana. And as I pan up here, you can see what is known as the cannon tree, and we'll just kind of move over so you get a better view of that. On that are the city shields, as I understand it, of various Swiss cities, and you can also see that at the top is the seal of the United States of America, and also the seal of Switzerland. And we'll just move a little bit closer to the cannon tree here. I'm getting a little bit rained on right now. That's kind of a bummer. Whoops, let's move the camera up here so you can see this better. It says the cannon tree contains the crests of 26 Swiss cantons, those are states, as well as the larger crests of the United States and Switzerland. It is believed that this is the only canton tree in the world. I believe that the only other one is located in London, England. So this is really kind of neat. You can see all of the seals of the various Swiss states. Kind of a neat thing to see, and the birds apparently like it too. There appear to be a couple of bird nests up there, and let's see if we can take a look up there a little bit better. I don't see it. There go a couple of birds. They really like it up there. I should pull out my other camera and get some good bird shots. Anyhow, Berne's an interesting place. If you are in Indiana or passing through, great place to kind of stop, and you can take a tour over at the Swiss Village, which I did earlier, and it's really a wonderful place. So I'm going to get back in my car before I get rained on anymore. Hopefully the storm is going to go away, and let's just pan back so you guys can get one more look at the Berne at the Berne clock tower. And kind of disappointed that it's not operating today, but you know what, I think I'll come back sometime when it is and film it and put it up on YouTube for you guys. So